Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, episode 396. In this episode, we shall review War of the Rohirrim, the newly released animated Middle-earth film from executive producer Peter Jackson. Greta, there you are.
Here I is. Hi, guys. It's good to be back.
All right.
Yeah.
It is good to be back.
Thanks for having me,
I, too,
John.
have kind of been away for, a little while, so...
Yeah. So it's like a double reunion.
It is a double reunion.
Nice.
And a joyful one at that.
Indeed.
Before we begin, we'd like to give a double up air five to our amazing fellowship. Stick 'em up, fellowship. 3, 2, 1. Whoopsht. Very nice. Very nice.
Very good.
Special thanks to this episode's executive producers, Caitlin T. with Tolkien, John R., KG, and Arendelle Hope. All right, well, I have to be honest. The first 2 seasons of The Rings of Power were so painfully bad that I was not feeling enthusiastic about the War of the Rohirrim going into seeing it last night. The one spark of hope that I felt was the knowledge that it had Peter Jackson as an executive producer and that it had nothing to do with Amazon Studios. I stayed away from the marketing and from others' thoughts and opinions, hoping to go into it with as much fresh perspective as I could garner. As for Greta, I don't even think you knew about it until I had mentioned it to you like a couple of days ago that we were going to go see it.
True. Yeah. I feel like I remembered you mentioning that it was in the works like a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that it was out.
It had been in the works for a long time.
Yeah.
But, anyway, we can talk about all of that maybe later on. But let's just start. We went to see it last night. Let's just start with immediate reactions. So, Greta, I mean, what do we want to say about immediate reactions?
Immediate reactions.
Yeah.
I was honestly blown away. Like it was, I told John I wouldn't say I was dreading going to see it, but I was not like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to go see this movie. I was very skeptical of anime and Tolkien. Like I wasn't quite sure that anime was going to be the right medium for Tolkien. Like I was just like, how is this going to work? Is it even going to work? But I will say I made a conscious decision at the beginning of the movie to just give myself over to it. I'm like, I'm just going to suspend like all knowledge of reality and I'm just going to enter into the story and I'm just going to just, allow myself to be overtaken by it. And I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that whole concept of suspension of disbelief because, of course, that's in juxtaposition to the whole idea of enchantment that Tolkien talks about on fairy stories. And the word I was going to use is I found it enchanting in the Tolkienian sense, right? So that's about the best compliment you could pay to it. As I mentioned, like I feel like I've been dealing with a little bit of this sounds really dramatic, but I'll be honest, like I feel like I was dealing with a little bit of like low grade PTSD from like what a disaster I feel like The Rings of Power has been for the first 2 seasons. I didn't even finish season 2, right? I was just so like, this just sucks. So I was like, I don't know, the last few months have been a little tough from a perspective of like I needed to take a break. I needed to take a step back from like churning out content based on my reaction to things involving Tolkien, which I hate that I had to do that. But seeing this, I was totally enchanted by it in the theater. I didn't like it. I hear you having to like do the like decide that you're going to give yourself over to it at the beginning, and that's good. Like but you're basically saying you wanted to give it a fair shake. You didn't want to go in and be like but did you find yourself like constantly having to do that see, that's the thing, right? So that's enchantment, right?
Yeah.
When you are sitting in a movie theater or reading a book and you don't find yourself having to be like kind of cringing and being like, I don't know, that's kind of, and then kind of be like, well, I guess I'll just continue watching, it's, you want to enter into that state where it's almost like, it's almost like hypnotic, right?
Yes.
You're just like, you're just
totally.
like, I am engrossed in this story. I'm engrossed in this world. And I know a good story, whether it's in a book or a film or whatever, right? I know something is good when I'm just like, even music, right? I know something is good when I don't have to like will myself to accept it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When it's just
Exactly.
like, yes, like it, you know,
Yeah.
your whole like your whole being just says yes to it, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I found that I was having that kind of visceral enjoyment throughout the
Mhm.
whole movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can pay it any higher of a compliment. Like, I just feel like it does justice to the this kind of little bit of a story that's laid out within the appendices of the
Mhm.
Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
I think they knocked it out of the park, and
I
that's as much a
agree.
testament to the storytelling itself as it is to just the visuals and the music and everything. It was
Mhm.
a complete experience as far as I'm concerned. It didn't. It was not. There was nothing like corny or cheesy about it as a cartoon, right? Like
Mm-mm.
it
Mm-mm.
was, you know, it was like what I've said before in the past that I thought the future of Tolkien of telling of Middle Earth storytelling was actually like high quality anime, right?
Hmm.
I thought it fit most with the kind of aesthetic philosophy that I get from reading Tolkien.
Okay.
I thought it made the most
Yeah.
sense, and I thought they captured it
Yeah.
like really well within that film.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just had this like intense visceral enjoyment, which
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. Like I don't get that
Yeah.
from stories often. Like I
Yeah.
get that there's certain TV shows where I've gotten that, and I know when I feel that because I'm like, oh, I just want to keep watching. I just want to keep
Yeah.
watching. I just want to keep watching.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with everything you said. I did. Yeah, I did not I did not have to make that like I was just completely engulfed
Mm-hmm.
in the story. I even noticed like at one point I was like sitting in like this really like awkward position, but I was like I didn't even want to move. I was just like everything.
Pretty
I
sure
was
you
just
turned
like
sideways in the giant chair and
I
and propped your
did.
feet up on the
I
chair
did.
next to you in the movie
Yeah, I
theater.
was actually like it was like kind of a full theater, but it was not sold out by any
Yeah.
means. So yeah, we had plenty of space. But yeah, I was kind of like turned and like had my feet propped, and I remember like noticing at one point it's like, oh, my legs are at a weird angle, but I was like, whatever. Like back to the story. But I thought it was beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I told you last night. It felt totally Tolkienian.
Yep.
The dialogue, the music, just the vibe. Like it was totally like Middle Earth through
Yeah.
and through. Like yeah, I give it 11 out of 10 stars. It was awesome.
Yeah. I was just I don't know. I had a thought there that I kind of lost for a second. It'll come back to me in a moment, but um, yeah, I was completely engrossed in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one big fear I had going in was I knew I didn't pay much attention to the marketing. I didn't watch any of the trailers or anything like that, but I knew that they had kind of promoted this nameless character of Helm's daughter to the basically main character of the story. And when I heard that, I was very apprehensive because I was like, oh no, are they going to girl boss this?
Yeah.
Like, you know, are they going to like, you know, look, I don't care. I don't care what you think. I'm just so over the girl bossing stories thing, right? Like there is a absolutely a place for strong female characters in storytelling, but the girl bossing has got to stop. It's just dumb. And, uh, and I was worried that they were going to do that to this story, right? But I'm delighted to say that I don't think that's what they did.
No.
I think they took this character who was you know kind of a background character, a nameless background character, and they recognized that like to make this a more relatable story, we need to have a character that is not you know just the hardcore warrior guy, you know, but is like you know it's kind of that thing that makes the hobbits so genius, right? Is like
Mm-hmm.
they're more relatable. There's a weakness to them, but there's also like a sense in which they are you know going on the hero's journey themselves. And I thought what they did was they actually did a great job of
Mm-hmm.
taking how Tolkien wrote a lot of his best female
Yeah.
characters, and they incorporated a lot of that into who she was. She was not some kind of like you know warrior who you know she doesn't look anything like a warrior, and then it's like turns out that she's the greatest warrior of all and nobody can beat her, even the biggest you know strongest warrior. It was like she was vulnerable and
Mm-hmm.
she was weak at times, but she was
Yep.
also a strong character.
Yeah.
And I was just really thrilled that they did
Mm-hmm.
that very well, I
Yeah.
thought.
No, I agree. I had the same. Again, I knew nothing about it going into it, and like with the opening scene where it starts introducing her, I was like, oh great, here we go again. Like here's the like a repeat of what they did with Galadriel in the
Yes.
Amazon series, and I was like, no, this please no. But I realized pretty quickly that that was not going to be the case, and yeah, I thought she was very relatable, but also a very strong character.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to you already, but I really like, she was very reminiscent to me of like how Eowyn was portrayed in Lord of the Rings, like
Yeah.
just that very strong female character, but also like vulnerable and beautiful. So
Yep. Yeah, and like because I feel like they did a pretty good job of staying true, like telling the story basically as Tolkien laid it out within within the appendices. Because they did that, like I was able to just like when I saw them being like, okay, yep, they got that right, they got that right, they got that right, like I was like, okay, I can let down my guard. It was like they were building trust with
Yeah.
me as a
Yeah.
hardcore Tolkien fan, instead of being like, hold on, you think you know Tolkien, we know actually we know Tolkien better than Tolkien. We're gonna like that's how the Rings of Power has done things, right? And or maybe it's just more incompetence than anything else, but like with this, it was like they actually seemed to be building that kind of trust with their audience, which I think the way that you have to do it when you're doing these kinds of world building within a like kind of a treasured treasured legendarium, like the legendarium of Middle Earth, right? When you're trying to build upon what Tolkien left, you're trying to build upon that. You've got to be true to what he left,
Yep.
right?
Totally.
So,
Totally. Yeah, it was truly fantastic.
Yeah.
And when it opened with the a refused marriage proposal, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be good.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's and I thought the way they built that into the heart of the story. Again, like the key is that they didn't violate, like with that, they didn't violate anything that Tolkien had laid out. It very clearly states within the little bit we have of this story from Tolkien that that there was this that Freka shows up with his son Wulf, and they kind of walk in, and like to Helm, and to Helm's throne room, and they're like, Freka basically demands that Helm give his daughter in marriage to Wulf, right? And and that's how it all starts out. So I think the way they built that up, and they kind of did more with that story, with that core story, is perfectly legit. Like I think that's the way you got to do it. You got to start with the basics that Tolkien gave you and build from that, and not violate it, right?
Yeah.
Not and there were some tiny changes here and there, and some things that are kind of like you could raise an eyebrow at them, but they were so few and far between that you're just able to enjoy the rest of it. And the rest of it was so well done, and just set the right tone. Like it was just perfect tone throughout.
Yeah. The vibe was just off the
vibe.
charts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You just like, I just was vibing to it the whole time. I don't know. It was
Yeah.
like, I was on the wavelength.
Yeah, totally. I know. At one point, I was like, "Oh, I'm sad that we didn't bring our kids because they would love this."
We basically, and they're not really like Tolkien people, because
Yeah.
it's like Dad's Tolkien guy, so I can't be. It's like, oh, Dad, this is Dad's thing. But like, they did love Lord of the Rings, the movies, when we sat them down and made them watch them a few years ago. But we told our boys last night. Our daughter's not yet home from college, but when she gets home, we're like, the three of you need to go see this movie. You will love it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it is so good.
Yeah, it's so good.
So
You gotta watch.
Anyway,
So good.
so I assume people, if they're watching this, have probably already seen it. But I mean, because you want to avoid spoilers and that kind of thing. But if you have not yet, then you got to go see it. You really do.
If you already have seen it, go see it again.
Go see it again.
I want to see it again.
Maybe we should go see it again.
Maybe
I don't know.
we should.
Maybe we should. All five of us should go see it.
Maybe we should. Honestly, Christmas family movie outing. That sounds
it's
good
so
to
good.
me.
I want to support it. Like I want to like support it with my money, right?
Yeah.
It's this is the reaction you want your hardcore fans to have. Take my money, right?
Yes, totally.
And it's such a relief, because I was getting really worried that the future of Tolkien screen adaptations was very dark. It was very unpromising. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the details and the question of how faithful was it to Tolkien's version. So for those of you who don't know, there's basically two places we get this story. The first is we get a very short couple of lines about it in the Tale of Years, Appendix B in the Lord of the Rings. And then it taking place in the years Third Age, 2754 and 2758 through 59. And then there's a longer version of it in Appendix A when it talks about the history of Rohan. So I kind of went through before we went last night, and I posted this on our Twitter/X, whatever they're calling it these days, account. Let me share this here with everybody. So this was what I was using to kind of guide me when it comes to like the things I was looking for, kind of the points, like the beats that I felt like it needed to hit in order for it to really be successful. And I basically said, like, if they deviate greatly from this, I'm going to have a really hard time enjoying it, right? That's not to say I'm like it. I'm not the kind of person who's like, it's got to be exactly like it or it's a complete failure. It's like, no, it was too well done and I enjoyed it too much. So we're going to identify a few things where it's kind of like maybe open for discussion on how they did it. There was one significant change that I picked up on. And again, like when I say change, I mean a contradiction of something Tolkien himself wrote, right? I'm not talking about like building upon the lore and adding things in. I'm talking about like contradicting things that he specifically wrote. All right, so the first thing, Third Age 2754, King Helm of Rohan kills Freka the Dunlending with a Hammerhand of a blow. Okay, so that's my summary of that event. What's interesting about that event in the appendices is it almost comes off like I would say it comes off as Tolkien wrote it, like Helm was more of an aggressor than the film made him out to be. Okay.
Okay.
Now Freka does show up, and he shows up like very much like, dude, you shouldn't walk into the king's throne room like that. Like, I mean, that they got that part right, and like kind of the back and forth about Freka like growing large because he likes to eat so much, like the fat joke basically. That was definitely part of it. He comes in really kind of demanding that Helm give. It's like that's not the kind of thing you say out in front of everybody else, right? Unless you're almost like attacking the dignity of this person, right? You don't just walk up to some guy in front of all of his friends and the people who are supposed to respect him and be like, give my son your daughter's hand in marriage, right? You don't do that, right? You don't do that. And there's hidden things. So in a way, that itself was kind of an attack on Helm, right, as the king. It was basically saying like, I'm not afraid to call you out in front of everybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they in the film they obviously make Freka, like they go outside and that happens in the story, but then like Freka obviously throws the first punches, right?
Yeah.
Now it never says that Freka throws any punches in Tolkien's version of the story. So at the same time though, I'm like, he could have, right?
Yeah,
like
could have.
it's a very like brief telling of it, right? That we get. And so the basic thing that Tolkien lands on is like Helm strikes him, and and Helm is just such a strong dude that he like basically Freka falls to the ground and then like dies a short while later, right? Yeah. Which is what happens in the film.
Yeah.
So I guess that could be open to interpretation about how that happens. I certainly want to hear from folks and what they think about how that was portrayed. I don't think they could have done it any differently and had it be as successful a story as they had it. I will say that. I will give them an allowance on this, and say like I think they probably did it the way they should have.
And the end result is the same, right? Freka dies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
exactly. There's no change to the actual like kind of consequence of it, except for maybe how you feel about Helm, right? There's maybe a slight it makes him out to be, if you don't read it as Helm struck him first, then it has to be that way. Then Helm becomes a more sympathetic character.
Yep, totally. Yep.
If you read it as Helm struck first, you're like, it's still not like Helm is the worst guy, because he might not have intended to kill him. He might have just intended to be like, you don't come into my throne room and call me out like that, right?
Well, even in the movie, he's like, they portrayed Helm as, or at least the way that I interpreted it was that it was an accident. You know, like it was not like, he wasn't like, good, he's dead. He was like, what? I only struck him once. You guys saw that. You saw it. You know, like it was not his intent to kill Freka. Yeah.
Yep. So, so I think, slight, whether we want to call it a contradiction, I don't think you can call it a contradiction.
No.
I think you can call it an interpretation. And I think it was probably the best interpretation, right? All right, Third Age 2758. Wulf, son of Freka, leads an attack on Rohan. That happens. Rohan overrun. Remnant flees to the Hornburg, led by Helm. That happens. Freka usurps the throne. Helm's son Haleth slain. That's the older son. That, of course, all of those three things happened in the film, so no issues there, really.
Yeah, I agree.
And I thought that was all really good. It was funny. I couldn't remember whether it was Haleth or Hama that was slain first, defending Meduseld. So I was like, when Haleth was slain, I was like, ooh, did they switch around Hama and Haleth? But no, it was Haleth that was slain. First. And again, like, just the way it was done, really, like, again, it was just done very dramatically. Like, Haleth was like, you could tell he was the older son. He was the one who was going to, like, the pride of his father and was going to be the next king and everything. And then it's just like he's like doing everything you'd expect him to do, and then the arrow through the throat. It was like, oh man,
Totally.
Powerful scene.
Well, let me ask you this, because I don't see it mentioned in your posts here.
Yeah.
But the betrayal by King Thorin. Was it Thorin? What was his name?
King.
The one that
Oh yeah. I can't remember that. I can't. Yeah, I know the Lord.
The Lord.
other
Yeah.
Lord, not Freka, but there was another Lord. I can't remember.
So he pledges to support Helm in the battle against Wulf, but then Hera realizes that that he's in league with Wulf, actually. So she's the one that actually realizes the betrayal and starts the evacuation.
Right.
So anyway, was that part of it, or was that like an adding? Like, was that part of the original story for Tolkien, or was that kind of like something that they took liberty with?
No, that was
okay.
I would say that was a building upon the story. Again, nothing in that like violated, contradicted anything that I can think of. So, so that was just good. Kind of additional story, building upon the story. The basic story in my mind.
Cool.
All right. Next up, we have during the long winter's 5 months, Hama, the younger son of Helm, leads a sortie against the besieging forces, but is lost. So this is the one thing that they really changed, right? So in the film, Hama falls behind because his horse can't keep up. I almost fell into tears when like his horse slows down, and I was just kind of like, because when you're a pet owner and everything like that, and you're just like, you love your animals, and then like it's Hama's undoing ultimately, you're just, and it was just like, you see the horse like struggling and everything like that, and it's just like, oh, like, fantastic. I mean, fantastic storytelling. I just gotta hand it to him again. Like, that was like, oh, poor horsey. Yeah, and he just loves his horsey.
He does. I know. And just that interaction between Hama and the horse, you could tell he was just like he wasn't angry. He was just like, oh, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
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 It was very touching.
Oh, I'm just tearing up thinking about it right now. It was and
you're like rooting for the horse. You're like, you can do it. You can do it. Just catch your breath. Just keep going.
Yeah. So this is the one thing they changed. So Hama falls behind. He gets captured by Wulf, and then Wulf rides up to the Hornburg, and basically just cuts his throat in front, right there in front of Helm and Hera. And in the story, Hama makes it to the Hornburg, and during the long winter leads a sortie out against Wulf's forces, but the sortie is lost in the winter, to the winter. So that was a little bit of a change. It was definitely a change. Now, I will say, sometimes these changes are going to happen in any kind of storytelling. They should be few and far between when it comes to Tolkien. But I think honestly, this was better. I think it made Wulf even worse.
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
made him way more of a villain.
and really, like, I don't feel like we lost anything. Like, we basically lost seeing Hama and a bunch of Rohan soldiers freeze to death, and not do a whole lot apparently. So I liked Hama as a character, like the way they portrayed him in juxtaposition to Haleth, his older brother, that he was kind of more, he was less of a warrior and more of a, like a creative type.
Yep.
I would have liked to see his character developed a little more, but that's really a very small criticism.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, I'm like, knowing that there will be in any adaptation, any retelling, there's going to be changes. They better be good ones when it comes to Tolkien, right? And I feel like I can live with this one. In fact, I think it's actually, it may have been the better way to tell it.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I think it helped to also sympathize Helm's character a little bit more too, because, in that interaction where, Wulf is threatening to kill him in front of Helm, you see Helm like basically begging him, like, just take me instead, right? Like, leave my son, kill me. You see that just fatherly, sacrificial spirit in Helm, and then knowing everything that comes after that, like, it works. Like, it totally works. Like this guy has, now seen both of his sons slain, right? So it just kind of advances, I feel like, his character arc in a very positive way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. Like, you really, it pulls you into deeper empathy for Helm and for Hera, and just ups the stakes of everything, right? What a complete catastrophe it was. It's like, I mean, when I thought of Helm, I almost thought of like King Lear, and he's not quite King Lear, but and there's a lot of differences, but I just thought of like King Lear and like, some of like what happens within that story. And come to think of it, you also kind of, you think of like King David too, from scripture, right? And some of the mistakes he made and the tragedies, the personal tragedies those led to for him. But yeah, so like, again, they made a change. They changed something Tolkien explicitly said, but in this case, I think they got it right.
I agree. And like and just, to kind of reemphasize the point about this, villainizing Wulf even more, right? Like, I literally, when the scene was unfolding, I was like, oh, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. Like, Wulf is, like, he's bad, but he's not that bad.
Right.
Like, he's not going to slit this guy's throat in front of his dad. And then he does it, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I know. I thought they weren't going to do it. I thought he was going to, like, I thought he was going to, like, something was going to happen, right? Just so Hama could get free or something like that. But but no. All right. Well, let's look at the rest of these bullet points that they laid out. Helm goes out clad in white, killing the enemies of Rohan with his bare hands, eventually freezing to death after doing much damage to the enemy.
You skip. You're right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yep. They got that. I mean, I thought that was done extremely well. I loved how it was almost like mythologized. Like, it had a very, like, kind of mythological vibe to it, as in that part of the film. Where it stepped away from the realism a little bit. The fantastical, what we call realism within the fantasy storytelling, right? Like, where it's, it seems the verisimilitude, and it almost entered into this like dreamlike quality, which I thought again was fantastic, right?
It's really well done.
And I don't know, like that I could probably do a whole episode just talking about like why that was so cool. I haven't really taken the time to articulate my thoughts on that too much, but it was masterfully done.
Well, it was also cool too because the we talk about the whole mythological aspect of that. The there's a scene in there where Helm is like he's been shot through with a few arrows at this point, right? So he's laying in a bed in Helm's Deep, and there's some talk about how like they're like it doesn't make sense, like his body is mending, but he's not waking up, And then I think Hera says something to the effect of like, I realize what's keeping you it's not a mortal wound. It's grief and it's sorrow that's dragging you down and keeping you down. And so it's almost like it lays the foundation for them to be like, oh yeah, this guy is like, it's not a mortal, he's no longer mortal, right? This is something bigger that's kind of fueling his anger and desire for revenge. So yeah, I thought that was really beautiful. Just that interaction between Hera, and what she says to her dad, and then all of a sudden he's gone, and you're like, whoa, where'd he go? Because even that, it's like he poof disappears, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
And then even Wulf at one point says, I will not be defeated by a ghost, right? So like even they like are like, okay, this is like something supernatural that's happening now.
Yeah.
And it also just shows too, just like the effect of, of what like losing children can do to a person, So yeah, I thought it was really well done.
Yeah. Next up, we have the next bullet point I laid out was after the long winter, Freyolf, Helm's sister son, leads a band from Dunharrow in an assault against the enemies of Rohan, slays Wulf and Meduseld, and reclaims the throne for the line of Eorel. So I don't have written down whether it's actually let's see here if I can figure it out. Does Freyolf actually slay Wulf by his own hand? Because if so, that would be a little bit of a okay, that is a little bit of a change too. So so he surprised Wulf and Meduseld and slew him and regained Edoras. So yeah, okay, that's another change. I actually didn't mark that one down as a change, but it is. I didn't, again, I don't have issue with it. Like, I think it was actually more, probably better storytelling. And, with these kinds of appendices sorts of stories, right? Like little, like where it's like 2 to 3 pages somewhere and you're trying to build a story off of it. I imagine that Tolkien, if he had tried to tell this story himself, would have changed a lot of things. Like would have developed themes and been like, maybe I'll do it differently. This might be better for effect.
Yeah. Totally.
But so again, I don't have a problem with this, right? The lesson here is that they're so true to like the underlying like nature and tone and everything of the story, and they nailed so many of the events that, and again, it's just like so well done aesthetically that you don't wince at every single thing, right? You don't like that's what happens when I watch Rings of Power is I'm like finding myself constantly wincing and just like rolling my eyes and being like, they can't do anything right. And it's just not enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to spend my time watching or thinking about that. Right.
Yeah.
I want to watch, I want to be enchanted. I want to lose my sense of self, and I just want to be engrossed in the thing that I'm watching or reading or listening to.
Completely. So. Yeah, completely. Question, the Eagles play a pretty big role.
Oh, last thing, and then we'll talk about Eagles. Saruman befriends Freyolf and the people of Rohan. That's the last thing I wrote, and that happens, of course, very briefly at the end. So Saruman shows up.
Gotcha. Yeah. So these are like your main bullet points. So yeah, they pretty much rocked it.
Yeah. I mean, they hit them. There was a few deviations, but they weren't. None of them were like changed the story.
Yeah.
Like in any consequential way, right?
Yeah.
So,
agree.
Anyway, Eagles.
Cool. Eagles, yes. Are they in the story that Tolkien laid out at all? Okay.
No, but I loved that. I thought that was brilliant, right?
No, it was great.
First of all, it brings into it ushers in the supernatural element to this story that's or I guess you could say the high legendarium element of this story that's more like kind of the low legendarium, where it's just like these men basically. There's no elves in the movie. And there's no like wizards except at the very end. You do get the Watcher in the Water scene, which I thought was really cool.
Was that the big octopus
Yeah,
thing?
yeah,
Okay.
the Watcher in the Water
Yeah, that
that
was
eats the
cool.
Oliphant, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
Which is kind of gross, but also
yeah,
cool.
yeah, it was cool. But the whole thing with the bringing in the eagles, right? That's ushering in kind of on the edges of this story, the high legendarium aspect of it, right? So the eagles, of course, being the heralds, the great eagles being the heralds of Manwë,
Yep.
and being Maya themselves, right? They're actually embodied and incarnated gods themselves, right? So and it was just super well done.
It was really well done. Yeah, no, I thought it was great.
And adds the
And
eucastrophic element to it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You took the words out of my mouth.
Well,
That
you
was
called it out
exactly
before
what
I
I
did
was
last
gonna
night.
say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because they're the it's the eagles that kind of basically alert Hera's cousin. What was his name again?
Freyolaf. Yeah.
Like he's Hera makes this amazing climbing ice covered mountains to get to the eagle's lair or nest or whatever, and drops off Helm's armor for them to take to Freyolaf. And I thought, I mean, yeah. And then when you see the eagle, you just, anyway, it was very gave you chills. I thought it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You catastrophe for the win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you gotta be, I mean, pretty much in Tolkien, if you got a catastrophe, it's got to involve eagles.
It's
right,
got
somehow,
to.
so.
It's got to. You can't not have eagles. And that was the other thing too. Like I just felt like not only was it visually stunning, but it was like they did an amazing job of just perspective, right? The eagles, they showed Hera standing in front of one of these eagles, and she was just minuscule,
right?
So it really it just kind of engulfed you in that whole world.
And even that, I feel like lesser storytellers would have been like, oh, she's going to walk up to this eagle and she's going to harness it because she's such a girl boss, right? And ride it and everything. And
right.
It's like, no, she's still small compared to this creature. Right.
Yeah. And the creatures were still terrifying.
They were. Yeah. And she's still kind of at its mercy. Right. So she goes to it, basically asking for its pleading with it for mercy and its aid, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just so that's just better. It's more Tolkienian. It's more purely Tolkienian. So
absolutely,
I really love that, and I will say I really liked Hera as a character.
I did
too. This completely developed from one sentence character. I thought she was great.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think she was beautiful. And she, and even with everything that happened with, I love that they put that little backstory in there of them, as children playing together. Really and, it was, she really, tried to reconcile and made several attempts, even after Wulf had done all those horrible things to her family. She still was willing to show him mercy at the end. And I thought she was just awesome. And, just speaking of the eagles and Hera, the movie opens with Hera going to see one of the eagles, and she brings them this ginormous turkey leg. And I'm like, okay, how did that fit in your horse's side bag? But anyway, but I love just that full circle, right? Where it opens with her, just this kind of seemingly standalone event with her, visiting the eagles. You're like, what are you doing? Why did you ride all this way to give the eagle a turkey leg? Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But then, you realize as this, story is kind of starting to wrap up, you're like, oh, it's going to come back into play now.
Yeah. 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 For sure. So all in all, pretty happy with that movie. I mean, any other thoughts you want to lay out before you give it a final grade, Greta?
No, I don't think so. I was just, I was just blown away, and I was just incredibly pleasantly surprised by it. I did not expect to like it nearly as much as I did. And
Yeah.
I thought it was a feast for the eyes and the heart, and it was.
Yeah,
It was just
I can't say
awesome.
enough about the
Yeah.
visuals. Like it was so good.
Yeah.
It was like let this guy. His name is the director is Kenji Kamiyama. It was like Miyazaki in Middle Earth, right? And like let this guy make Middle Earth films. Like have him be the guy.
Yeah,
And
totally.
continue to work with what the team that he worked with and everything, like the storytelling. But like this is the future I want for Middle Earth storytelling.
Totally. Totally. And I feel like they left the door open at the end of the movie too.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I hope I know Peter Jackson has other things planned within Middle Earth, and then of course I think Amazon Studios is going to continue with Rings of Power, but I'm done with Rings of Power. And but if I had to pick between the three, and I think Peter Jackson was an executive producer of this, of course. So I would say to Peter, like, just let this guy do all these things, right? And then promote the heck out of him, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Peter Jackson wants to do some more live action stuff, but I would just prefer like this, like just keep doing this. This feels like the thing I've always wanted Middle Earth to feel like, when it comes to the screen. And no disrespect to the Lord of the Rings films, of course, which are classics, and I love them. But that's really, I think Peter Jackson almost captured lightning in a bottle when he did those. And I don't know that you can do that
Yeah,
again with that medium. I think it's really difficult, especially with the huge reliance on like, CGI special effects and everything like that. And
Yeah.
I don't know, just kind of like the general storytelling incompetence of much of Hollywood these days. I just worry that that's those kind of live action big budget sort of blockbusters are just too difficult to pull off. So
Yeah.
I mean, Into the Spider-Verse, right, was a massive hit, and it was animated. So
That's true.
why can't movies like this be massive hits, right? Why can't a movie that's that's based on a very popular IP like Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, be a massive hit at the box office? I really hope this is a massive hit. I don't know. I am like, I didn't see any posters for it or anything at the movie theater last night, and I'm just kind of like, are they not promoting it? Like, what's the deal? So, y'all, if you've seen this, if you enjoyed it, go see it more. And you got to vote with your money if you want to see good stuff show up at the box office. This needs to be a hit. It's a $30 million budget according to the Wikipedia page here. And of course the box office doesn't matter at this point because it's just the second day of its release. I don't even think that that may not even include Friday there. That may just be Thursday totals. Hopefully that's just Thursday totals. But if this thing could be 100 million on a $30 million budget in the US, then that seems like a big win, right?
Totally.
And there's no reason it can't be much bigger, right? So tell everybody about it. Tell them they should go see it. Tell them it's highly worthwhile. Just use that word of mouth to get it around because we want to see movies like this made.
Yeah.
We want to see movies like this made. Peter, if you're watching, anything I can do to help, give me a call, right? Like,
yeah. And it's great. Like, it's so like something else that just occurred to me while you were talking was just in the world of movies today. Like, very rarely are there like movies that an entire family can sit down and watch and enjoy together. Like, this was completely appropriate for kids. And
I would say like probably like 12 and older, maybe
okay,
10,
I was going to
10
say
and older.
10. I was going to
10
say
and older.
10.
10 and older. Right? 10 these days. Would have been like 13 and older, if you like a generation ago, 10 these days, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some pretty scary parts of it. Like if you're a kid, and there's some parts that are kind of violent, like some more scenes that are kind of violent.
That's true, but it's not like, like appropriate wise, right? Like there's
Well, I can tell you right
in
now,
it.
if I was a 5-year-old and I saw this giant monster devour a giant
that's
elephant,
true.
I would be both scared and really sad because it's like he ate the elephant. Like,
But it was a mean elephant.
well, it was a mean elephant, but it's I don't know, something about seeing
I agree.
a creature get eaten by another is like, that's disturbing when you're a little kid.
I guess that's true.
I saw a few movies where that stuff like that happened, and it was always like it kind of stuck with me and like.
That's fair. Yeah. All right. So 10
Yeah.
and up. But, I mean, it is just like in a lot of ways, it's just so much more wholesome than so much of the stuff out today.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, I think, for probably 10 and older, it's definitely we're going to do it. We're going to take our kid.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to the five of
gonna
us
go.
are going to go see it
We're gonna
again
go.
when our daughter gets home.
Yes, for sure.
So,
for sure.
All right. So, tell us your thoughts. So Greta, 5-star scale, what do you give it?
5-star scale?
Yeah. One being sucks, 5 being great. Loved it.
I give it a 7.
You want to, wow.
7's a good number.
Yeah.
No, it was 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Like, easily. Like,
I think I give it a 5 out of 5 as well.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Kenji Yama,
Yes,
for directing
thank
this
you.
film and everybody else that was involved in a big way. This is a Tolkien fan who's been at this thing for almost 10 years. This was a real delight, and I have it gives me hope for the future of Tolkien storytelling, on the big screen. So now I just want you, what I want you, Kenji Yama, I want you to go and pitch to Netflix or somebody a animated, extremely faithful retelling of Lord of the Rings itself, right? Maybe start
Okay.
with The Hobbit and then do Lord of the Rings, right? Do this kind of style, but do it and get every detail. I want Tom Bombadil. I want all the stuff that Jackson left out of the movies because it was kind of I want to do the full bore, let's do, one chapter per episode kind of deal, right? And do
okay.
multi-season, 6 seasons of that, right?
That would be awesome.
That would be
That would
fantastic.
Be awesome. If you want to just ease your way into that, though, Kenji, I would love to see Baron and Luthien. So
yes,
that would be another option.
Well, hey, go get those Silmarillion rights.
Yes,
find a way.
yes.
Unfortunately, it's that's the thing is I'm not sure that this, if these kinds of movies can be humongous hits, then they can justify going to the Tolkien estate and being here, we're going to give you all this money to do it. Maybe Jeff Bezos will see this and be like, you know what? Forget my Amazon Studio stuff. I'm just going to fund this, right? That would be welcome
amazing.
to Jeff.
Yes.
So anyway, so 5 out of 5 for me.
Awesome.
I loved it. All right. We want to hear from you. What did you think of the War of the Rohirrim? Anybody else think we're completely off base and it was a complete disaster? I would probably have a hard time taking that seriously, but we're looking forward to the discussion. But hopefully we can just talk about all the things that were wonderful and we loved about it. So let us know in the comments below. All right. Quick word on 2025 plans. So the last few months have been pretty quiet. Basically, my plan had been, for the fourth quarter of 2024, we were gonna do individual episode reviews of Rings of Power season 2, and then I was just like, I don't want to spend any more time thinking about this show.
I appreciate you sparing me.
And
I haven't even seen any of season 2.
Consider yourself blessed.
Yes.
I have some, I developed some kind of low key PTSD, as I mentioned before, from just watching it and my utter disappointment with it. So we've been pretty slow going when it comes to new episodes, and I'm trying to think about the approach for 2025. We're definitely going to continue with the do not be hasty. So do not be hasty about do not be hasty. Our slow walk through the Lord of the Rings. We've done 2 chapters so far. And we will be doing a third probably at some point in 2025. I hope to get back to that soon. I've also got to finish the 2 Tolkien books I'm working on. So hopefully more on those soon as well. That will probably be my first priority entering into 2025. But I'm going to be trying to do more, less kind of scheduled sort of weekly content and more just kind of spontaneous, what's on my mind, what I want to talk about, what I'm working on right now kind of stuff. So really the 2025 plan is no big plans, right? No written in stone plans, right? So, but we're still going to be doing Tolkien Road stuff in 2025. So that's the plan. Hey, everybody, this will probably be our last big episode for the year. So hope everybody has a very Merry Christmas, and a very happy entry into 2025. We really appreciate everybody. We hope everyone will now go see War of the Rohirrim multiple times. Great art, deserves our support, and and if you want to see more of it, you got to give it as much support as you can, right? So
Totally.
that's how I feel about it. It's delightful to feel that way about this. So I hope everybody out there feels that same way, and that you'll go and support the film.
Yeah.
All right.
What he said.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please consider supporting us in one or all of the following ways.
First, join the Fellowship of the Road by visiting patreon.com/Tolkien Road. When you join the Fellowship of the Road, it helps us to keep on evering on and lands you some cool perks along the way. Learn more at patreon.com/Tolkien Road.
Second, if you're watching, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what's on your mind in the comments below.
Finally, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes or the platform of your choice. If you are a 5-star fan of the Tolkien Road, you can really help us out by heading over to iTunes or your platform of choice or preferred source for the show. And you can drop us a rating and review. When you do that, it helps get the word out about the Tolkien Road, which helps us to keep on evering on.
As always, keep the correspondence coming. We'll do our best to respond to you somehow and at some point. With Do Not Be Hasty, we'll let the mail pile up and then do a big mailbag episode at the end of each chapter. Well, this isn't Do Not Be Hasty. I'm reading from a script, guys. All right. Well, we can't promise you that your mail will be read on the air. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, so drop those comments and send those emails. Really, the big thing for us these days is dropping comments on YouTube, but we also strive to read our mail when you send it to our email address.
Yep. Finally, don't forget to stop by truemythspress.com for great merch like super styling and comfy Tolkien Road t-shirts, 2 Trees camper mugs, and signed copies of John's books, Tolkien's Requiem and Tolkien's Overture. Once again, that's truemythspress.com. Thanks for supporting our work with your purchase, and there are still a few more shopping days before Christmas, so everything there makes great stocking stuffers.
Right on.
Yeah.
To close, as always, we'd like to thank all of our amazing fellowship. We know all of you have as well as we should like, and we've thanked less than half of you have as well as you deserve. First, a shout out to those celebrating their fellowship anniversary from October through December of 2024. 1-year club, Brian O. II.
And Jesse N.
2-year club, Brian H.
Chris B.
2or91.
James L.
Ken P.
And Samuel B.
3-year club, Michael L. 4-year club,
Matthew F.
5-year club, KDW. And the 8-year club. 8 years. You guys are amazing.
That
8
is
years.
so awesome.
Brian O. the First.
Emilio P.
Margaret L.
And Zeke F.
Thank you so much for sticking with us over the years.
Thank you, guys.
Finally, special thanks to the following: John R.
Caitlin of Tea with Tolkien.
KG.
Arendelle Hope.
Emilio P.
Jonathan D.
Richard K.
Paul D.
Julia.
Wardy.
Chris B.
Tuora 91.
Carolyn S.
Emil K.
Brian O. II.
Jonathan R.
Matthew W.
Daniel D.
Harrison C.
Jason C.
Seb M.
Wilbo Baggins.
Ms. Anonymous.
Andrew T.
Red Hawk.
Shannon S.
Brian O. the First.
Zeke F.
James L.
Chris L.
Aja V.
Ish of the Hammer.
Teresa C.
David of Pints with Jack.
And Eric B.
Thank you, guys.
Finally, thanks to all those for watching and are listening. Thanks to all for watching and are listening. Not all those. All of yous for watching and are listening. Until next time, the road goes ever on.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.